that, I mean, just think about how much our quality of life would be so much better if we did every single thing we said we're going to do, and we did it when we said we're going to do it. And that applies to business, life, and trading. You said you're going to reply to that email. You said you're going to finish that project by this date. You said you're going to release your audiobook by this date. You're going to finish this. Make sure you do those things. That's what moves the needles in our life. And that applies to trading and investment as well.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another awesome episode of The Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On The Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live awesome lives. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. My man, what's going on?
Hey, so I'm excited about this episode because we have a guest that we typically don't bring those kinds of people on here. This guy is a day trader.
Dude, yeah.
Life on there, day trading, how does that work? But I think this is going to be a really good discussion because I think we can use a lot of the stuff that the successful day traders do to apply into actual real life and business.
Yeah, man, we don't talk. I do ask a couple specific questions about day trading, but the reason is because there are some principal tenets beneath that and some strategies and principles that will apply to life and business. And this is a really great episode. I think you'll really enjoy this one. Let's go right now. Here's our interview with Anmol Singh. Here he is. Anmol, what's up, man? Welcome to Life Inner Show.
Looking forward to chatting with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be awesome. I got to tell you, you have a little bit of a different background compared to most of the people and business owners we talk about. And so you have a history as a day trader, man. By the way, like, what even like drew you to that?
Honestly, I have no idea. I was in my dorm room in college, and there was a time where you had to apply for like different jobs and industries and internships before you can graduate. And I wasn't able to get in anywhere. So I had a whole year to just kind of be in my dorm room because I couldn't find an internship or a job. And that's kind of the year I started to just be on my computer, research about it, read books about it, take online courses, and really kind of just dived into that world. And I mean, I grew up as an introvert, so it was very easy for me to just sit there and really learn because I wanted to do something that I could do on the computer. So I think that's what really drew me is being an introvert. Don't have to deal with office politics or any of that. It's just me and my computer, and my results are dependent on myself and on my colleagues. So I think that was my attraction to this industry.
Man, so okay, so here you are, like you start day trading, which by the way, like the ups and the downs that I hear about day trading, like I've had some people be like, dude, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Then I go back to them in a week. They're like, man, like I just lost like 30 grand, like in one day, like, or whatever it is. Like, so there seems to be an incredible amount of emotional maturity and kind of an awareness of like, how do you, and the reason I'm asking this is because this applies to every business, every life, right? But like, how do you deal with such uncertainty around day trading? How do you make decisions without getting caught up in the emotions of like you see in a stock rise and do you have FOMO, or you see it dropping and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I gotta jump ship. Like, how do you learn to make decisions in such a fast-paced environment? And I mean, not to say that you're always gonna be right, but like, how do you really navigate that decision-making process?
Yeah, so I think first step is to realize that emotions will come in, right? I mean, we're human, we're not robots, so we're going to have that emotion. And research is already done. Trading releases the same hormones of dopamine and serotonin that you get when you gamble, when you have sex, when you do cocaine. And as traders, we're getting that every single day, those spikes. And that's what's affecting our emotions. So we need to realize that, number one, and then realize, okay, that's what's happening. So how do I control that? And the way you do that is through not making your decisions based on emotions, using data. I think a lot of traders don't have data, and that's what kind of causes them the issues. Is they don't know what they're going to make every day, every week, every month. They have no idea. They have no statistics. They're just trading based on feel, right? I think that's going to go up. Or I read an article, which a million other people also read, but I think I've got something special, right? And people make the decisions based on that. That's subjective. What we need is objective data. Okay, what's the technical pattern? Okay, how did that pattern do over the last 100 years if I traded that? How did last 100 trades play out? What's the win-loss ratio? What's the Sharpe ratio, right? What's my win rate? What's my batting average? So like these statistics, you need to know that. Because if I know my statistics, let's say if I'm going to win, let's say my win rate is 50%. So I know, okay, I'm going to win half and I'm going to lose half. But then if I know that my win-loss ratio on every winner, I make twice the amount as the ones I lose on my losing trades, then it's a no-brainer. And then statistically, I am going to make money. It's impossible for me not to make money. But then I also need to accept that I am going to have those losses as part of my statistic. So you have to have that kind of like the casino mindset, right? Like if you go to a casino and you win a huge round in blackjack, the casino's not going to cry about it. Like, oh my God, we just lost so much money. They're going to be like, here's some free drinks, stay extra night, keep playing. Because the longer you play, they have this percentage edge that they're going to win in the long run. And that's what
Right.
we need to do as traders is we need to be the casino and not the player.
So you mentioned like, news, and I'm curious, like, do you pay attention? And is this an important factor in making decisions, or is this just noise that other people are going to get skewed by? Or is it really, it is important to kind of know what's going on?
I think news is already telling you what already happened, right? And that already happened. There's nothing you can do about it. So the decision need to be made either on predictive, what you actually think might happen.
Okay.
Because by the time news come in, there's a pretty popular saying in trading, buy the rumor, sell the news. So people buy in advance, expecting the news to come in. When the news comes in, then the average person's buying, your Uber drivers, your cab driver, hairdressers, everybody start buying. But at that time, the institutions traders are selling it. That's why we call it buy the rumor, sell the news. And it happened over and over. In every stock, people expect this drug is going to get this approval, and the stock starts running up. When the approval finally comes in, the stock tanks because that's what people anticipate that. And so money's made in anticipation, not in the actual news.
That's interesting, man. I think most people probably do it the other way. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I read about this. Like today, I saw that McDonald's is going to be, offering Krispy Kremes by 2025, and the stock jumps 20%, in pre-trading. And so I was like, there we go, perfect example, right?
That's what intrigued you, the Krispy Kremes,
Oh,
isn't
dude,
it?
I
For the
love
headline.
me some Krispy
No.
Kremes, man. That's like crack.
I'm trying to diet. Let's not talk about Krispy Kremes.
You're making me hungry, right? So okay, so you're as a day trader, are you by yourself? Do you function alone, or do you have a team? And the reason I ask is because like I can understand like sometimes like when you're in a business environment and there's people around, you maybe you're in that environment, you're in the mode, you're in the zone. But if you're by yourself, or if you're, you mentioned being an introvert, I'm an introvert as well, like you're kind of like running it solo. And then my question to that point is like, how do you maintain that? What kind of ways have you developed to help yourself be successful?
Yeah, so I mean, I trade by myself. I got my home office. I trade alone. But what we do have is a community of traders. So we have our own chat room. There's thousands of traders hanging around in there. So we still have that community aspect
Mm,
because that's actually a really important point that you bring up. Because when we're by ourselves and there's no accountability, nobody's looking over our shoulder, it's very easy to make these bad mistakes because nobody's ever going to find out. Let's just close our laptop. My wife would never find out all the losses I took. Nobody's ever going to find out, right? So I think it's important to have that community. So the way we do it is by having a chat room. We have hundreds of thousands of traders in there. We're all chatting. We're all sharing ideas. We're picking each other's up. Hey man, don't worry about it. You'll get back. You'll get it back. So we're encouraging people, but then we're also being real. Like, hey, that was a bad mistake. You shouldn't have done that. Why did you risk so much money? Right? You're trading outside of your depth. So we keep each other accountable. And I think that's a really important aspect of that. You have to have a community. And I think a great analogy is like horses. Think about horses. A Belgian horse, right? It can pull about 8,000 pounds of weight. So if I was to ask you how much can two Belgian horses pull, well, most people would say 16,000, right? Double, but not really. Two Belgian horses can actually pull 20 to 24,000 pounds, right? So we're stronger together as a community, and I think it's really important to have that community together.
mm.
Well, that's a good
So
analogy.
that makes a lot of sense, man. That makes a ton of sense. Um, and so what kind of like you're working on your own, you have these potentially emotional influences that are kind of you constantly probably have to keep them at bay. You have the data, but do those emotions ever go away, or you just choose to ignore them?
They're never going to go away.
Okay.
And if they go away, then you're in trouble, like, because then something's wrong with you, right? So they're never going to go away. You just have to recognize it, but then kind of just make that conscious decision of, okay, but here's who I'm choosing to do. Here, I'm choosing to follow my plan. I think that's where a plan comes in, right? Like just like you wouldn't enter a business without a business plan, you should also have a trading and investment plan. How much am I risking? When am I going to get out of this trade? Like you need to know those things before you take the trade, because when we take the trade, now we're emotional. We're bought into that, right? So we're not thinking clearly. So every single trade that we take, you need to know beforehand, when you're going to get in, when you're going to get out if you're right, right? But then also when you're going to get out if you're wrong. And that was predefined. So when it hits those points, there's no questions. We take the loss, we walk away. So learning how to take small losses is key to success. And that goes for business and in life, right? Like learning how to take small losses. If you people can just avoid those big disaster losses, they're going to last longer in this business. And there's a saying in trading that, in order to win, you need to bet. In order to bet, you need the chips. If you run out of chips, you can't bet, right? So you have to keep your chip. Risk management is number one priority.
So unpack that a little bit more for us. Like, how do you know? Like, and I'm trying to conceptualize this and operationalize it. Like, so if you are certainly, first of all, my question is, why is it important to have those losses? But secondly, how can you accurately gauge the extent of that loss? And like, one thing I heard once that made a lot of sense is like, never bet the kingdom on a pot of gold.
Mm.
And so keep those losses in perspective. But number one is like, why is it important for people to go through losses? And two is like, how do you actually mitigate the downside of those losses to protect yourself?
Yeah, so no single trade loss should ever exceed more than like 2% of your account. And even 2% is a pretty big number, right? Most newer people should not even be risking more than 0.5% or
Mm.
1% of their account on any given trade. Because if you can afford to take a lot of 1% paper cuts, it's not a big deal. Once you get a winner, then you get some of it back. But as you start exceeding 2%, then now you need a big comeback to make that back. So I think that's how you limit your risk. And then you need to know beforehand exactly how much you're going to lose. And the way you do that is very simple. So let's say you decide, okay, I'm comfortable losing $1,000. Okay. So then you say, okay, if I buy this stock at $100 and if it goes to 99, I'm going to get out. So you're risking $1 per share. So now if you want to lose only a maximum of $1,000, how many shares do we buy? We buy 1,000 shares, right? So if we buy 1,000 shares at $100, it goes to 99 and we take our loss. So now we know exactly how much we're going to lose. So we decide the dollar amount, what we're risking on that trade before we take that trade. And I think that's how you calculate how many shares to buy. Most people don't calculate. They just think, today I'm going to buy 500 of this or 1,000 of that. No, we calculate exactly how much we're going to lose on that trade through the dollar amount. And we try to also keep all the losses the same. So every trade is about the same loss, right? So then our ratios, so statistics can be maintained.
So, all right. So, man, I got to dig in with you here because, and I'm fascinated with this topic. And at the same time, I'm confused and I want to clear some thoughts. Like, because I've heard other people say like, and maybe this doesn't apply to day trading, but I've heard other people say like, hey, you only lose if you sell when it goes down. And so for instance, like use COVID, for instance, when the market tanked and yet there were some and by the way, like after those a lot of those things tanked and I'm like, ooh, this is it's on sale, like now's the time to buy, and it came back up, but the people who sold got burnt. And so when is it how do you overcome that thought of like, maybe it'll come back, or oh, maybe it's just a dip, like how do I, or is it just a hard and fast rule like, hey, this is gonna when it dips, this is what I'm selling at, or is there any kind of like wiggle room in there, or you're really just that strict with it? You're like, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, you have to be strict, right? Because if you don't have rules, then you don't have a plan, then you don't have a business. Then it's just based on feel. Because a lot of people miss. Sure, it might come back up, but what about the opportunity cost, right? What about like some stocks like Zoom, Roku are never coming back, right? Like a lot of those stocks that went as high in COVID, they're never coming back. So now you just missed out. So you need to take profits on the way up, right? So imagine, let's say I buy, I don't know, a stock at $50. Now it goes to $100. Now it goes to 150. So every time I keep raising my limit up. So as it starts to drop, then I'm getting out around that top, not at the top, but around that area. I'm locking in the profit because then guess what? I can always buy it back when people were selling it. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to take advantage of those drops that people cause and buy those on those declines, because you don't want to be in a position where you're holding on to a stock for 1, 2, 3 years and hoping it comes back up. I mean, look at Tesla, for example. It hasn't come back up yet. And so you just held it for 2 years. What about the opportunity cost? What about that money could have produced something else in a different stock? So I think a lot of people don't think about that, is the
Mm,
opportunity cost of things. And I think that's why I just stick to my rules, because the rules
right.
are proven to work over time. That's my numbers.
Yeah.
My gut feel is not proven, right? I think that's kind of how I look at it.
And do you similarly have a number you're going to set? Like, say you got a stock for $100. You're like, hey, I'm going to sell it when there's a 10%, when I get 10% back. and you sell it right off the table, even if it's still going up, or do you hold on to it to see if it keeps going? Do you let it run?
So yeah, technically I usually pick targets, right? So I
Okay.
look at, okay, where's the last area I kind of had trouble in, and I could draw a resistance line and say, okay, that's where it could go to, and that'll become my target. Example would be, let's say I bought Tesla stock recently at 170. Now I'm saying, okay, if it goes to 300, I'm probably going to sell it, take some profit, and then if it comes back down again, I could buy it back. So as a trader, you want to take advantage of those waves rather than just riding those waves over the course of years, because there's also opportunity cost involved. So yeah, I set pre-targets in mind. And sometimes if it gets to my target and I think, you know what, I think it could still go higher, then what I'll do is I'll raise my what's called a stop loss all the way up. So now if it drops $5, I'll just get out and I'll take whatever small profit. But if it keeps going, I'll let it go and I'll just keep inching my orders up until a point where it turns, and then that's when I will get
Get
out.
out. Dude, I appreciate you sharing this, because this is, I mean, I'm learning a lot here. What have you learned through your experience through trading and through business, like in terms of like, success? Or I'm sure there's so many lessons that you've uncovered in many different areas of like managing yourself, managing business, thinking through numbers and things like that, that you could share with our audience maybe.
Yeah, I think the number one key that I talk about in my book, Prepping for Success, is integrity. Being a person of integrity, like doing what you said you're going to do and then doing it when you said you're going to do it. It's as simple as that. I mean, just think about how much our quality of life would be so much better if we did every single thing we said we're going to do and we did it when we said we're going to do it. And that applies to business, life, and trading. If you say you're going to get out of the stock when it goes down to this price, then you better get out. So if you just follow your word, you're going to be on the right track of things. And most people would come and say, but I'm a person of integrity. I always do I'm like, nobody does what they always all the time, right? When's the last time you said, somebody called you, said, hey, I'm just in the middle of something. Let me call you back. And you never did, right? Or you ran into an old friend at a shopping mall or an airport, and you're like, hey, good to see you, buddy. We should totally make plans to catch up. And then you make no attempt to ever catch up with them.
Right.
So
Right.
you just said something and you didn't really mean it. Think about that. Like we just said,
Yeah.
we're just bullshitting basically. So where is that coming from? And I think those questions apply in business too. You said you're going to reply to that email. You said you're going to finish that project by this date. You said you're going to release your audiobook by this date. You're going to finish this. Make sure you do those things. That's what moves the needles in our life. And that applies to trading and investment as well. Get out when you said you're going to get out, right? It's really important to do that and not just hold, because hope is not a strategy. Most people do buy and hope, right? Warren Buffett told buy and hold, but people do the opposite. They buy and hope is not a strategy.
Dude, I'm feeling called out, Peter. Like I just had a guy yesterday. He's like, "Hey, I'm still waiting for that head because I'm supposed to speak on Anmol at a group." And he's like, "Hey, I need your headshot." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get it to you." 2 days ago, I'm like, "God, I gotta get this done."
Yeah, we all
So,
do that. Yeah, we all do
right,
that.
man.
It's
It's
just
yeah.
recognizing it.
So, okay, I love that, man. What else you got for us?
I mean, I think that's step number one. So
That's
people
yeah.
should kind of sit down with themselves and really think about, okay, where in my life I said I'm going to do something and I didn't follow through. And
Mm,
don't beat yourself up over it, right? Like everybody does that. And don't apologize for it. Oh, sorry, I didn't do it again. I'll do it again. Because you will do it again, right? So don't
right.
apologize for it. Rather than that, you just gotta, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to correct your integrity? Right. So it happened to me 2 days ago. I was supposed to be on a Zoom meeting. I was like 20 minutes late, but I logged in and the first thing I said wasn't like, hey, sorry guys, I was late. I didn't say that. I said, hey, guys, I know I was late. I know the impact it probably had on you guys were waiting, wondering what happened. But here's how I'm going to fix it. For the next few calls, I'm going to actually hop on like 5 minutes early. I'm going to put it on my calendar. So now actually put physical things in place to ensure that that won't happen again. Right. And number one, now people like think about how your team thinks about you when you come up and say that up front. Like, hey, I know the impact on you guys. You guys were waiting for me, but you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to fix this. And next time I'm going to actually do what I said I'm going to do and be there on time. I think that changes the whole culture of your company, your business, your life.
Hey guys, we get right back to our episode, but there's something really important I want to tell you about, and that is this. You don't have to choose between having a great life and a great business. You can have both. We have 2 different events, in fact, to help you do just that. Our Get a Life Getaway is our proven process. We've been doing this for just about 15 years now of walking you through the process of creating your own personal life vision, your life and your vision for the ideal life that you want to live. And by the way, this isn't pie in the sky approach to living. This is a tangible, strategic way to really figure out exactly what you have to do and what things have to be in place for you to live that vision, and so that you can make this a reality. Now, the second part of that component is, the second part of the formula is the business builder workshop. So this is where now finally you can have a business that doesn't absolutely destroy your life, and you can make the money you want in the amount of time you want. You can have fun. It can fulfill vision element items. You can remove yourself from the day-to-day and the minutia, so you're only doing the things that are most enjoyable to you and that you're best at, right? Can you imagine what that'd be like to get to enjoy and wake up every day loving what you get to do in your business and making money hand over fist? Like, it's just an amazing combination. So I want to encourage you to go to the Get a Life Getaway and the Business Builder Workshop, because they're really a 1-2 punch combination to help you get the ideal life and business that you dream about. Now, here's the even cooler part, Peter. We have a very special promo for them. Tell them about that.
Well, because you guys are a loyal listener, because you're listening to our podcast and listening to my English and his English all the time, here's what we have for you guys. Head over to lifeoneearth.com, click on the events tab at the top of the page, pick the event that you want to go to the checkout page, and in the promo code area, type in podcast, 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 hit apply, and guess what you're going to get? You're going to get 50% off. That's 50% of the ticket price, the regular ticket price, that majority of the people out there who don't listen to our podcast don't know about it yet, get to pay, but you get to pay only 50% off. So head over there right now, get to this event, and I can't wait to meet you. Come up to us, say hi to us, introduce yourself, tell us you found us on the podcast. We would love to talk to you and show you how this vision process really creates miracles in people's lives.
Man, one last thing is, I don't know when you're listening to this episode right now, but I don't know how long we're going to keep this discount up. I don't know how long this promotion will be valid. So go and do it right now to make sure you get that 50% savings. We'll see you at an event soon. Let's get back to the episode. There's so many downstream effects of, I think, that integrity. One is probably, you're gonna have more status in other people's eyes because, hey, this girl does what they say they're gonna do. When you're gonna inspire your colleagues, your employees, your friends, your circles to also look at their integrity. You'll probably focus on the most important things in your business, and really, if you set that as a priority, you're likely to honor it. Right. And so there seems to be so many different downstream effects of integrity. Like, I love that, man.
Yeah. And that's leadership, right? Like, you're leading from the front, leading by example, and you're setting an example for your team. Because now my team knows, like, if they ever do something that they were late on or something, they will do the same format. Hey, man, I told you I'm going to get this to you by this date. I didn't. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this or that. And now that's a culture, because they take your lead on things, on how you handle things. And that applies to our life too. For example, I'll give you a place in my life that I was in complete lack of integrity, which was like, I'm working out and eating healthy. Right. So I said to myself, oh, I'm going to work out from Monday, and then I'll look at, I'm going to work out tomorrow. And then tomorrow is like Thursday. So you say, okay, I'm going to work out from Monday. And then Monday comes, but it's like the 28th of the month. I'm just going to work out from the 1st. That's when I'm going to start. But it's December, right? So let's just wait for New Year's, and then I'm going to start. And I just kind of caught myself like, what are you doing? Like, you're complete lack of integrity, right? So then I said, I hired a trainer. He comes same time now every day, right? And hopefully when we do a podcast like 6 months from now, you'll see a better result, because now I actually put things in place. I got a trainer. He comes same time every day, and we got the workout done. There's no, oh, I'm sorry, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, you got to put things in place to fix that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about here, man, as far as the integrity goes, because I think that's a huge thing for a lot of people. I mean, we all deal with it. One thing that I want to ask you, because it's been in my mind as you were talking beginning of the conversation, we asked you about, not emotional versus making the logical based on data decisions, and what you put in place. You have a plan in place, right? So the logical data, so the emotion doesn't come up. I wonder if, and then you talk about the community and accountability and things like that. I wonder if you were able to take that, I don't know, psychology criteria, the way you've structured it into your business, into life. Because think about it this way, like let's say life decision, right? Do I go live in Florida? Do I live in Michigan? And do I go and do A versus B? And sometimes it's, especially in life, there is emotion involved. So have you been able to apply this into life, and how you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to decision making, right? So there's many different ways you can make decisions. Like you could either be logical about it, like you can write down on a piece of paper pros and cons. Like, let's say the moving example you just gave. If I move to Florida, what are the pros? What are the cons, right? And you kind of try to balance those out so you can see for yourself the actual pros and cons on paper. Because when we're in our thoughts, we could be emotional, we could be on feel, right? And we forget all the cons because we're so focused on one thing. So I think that's why writing it down, pros and cons, help you make that decision. And from a spiritual aspect, I mean, just like ask God. Like I'll sometimes I will just be like, okay, here's the decision I'm struggling with. What do I need to do? And some people call it meditation, and that's fine too, right? Sit with yourself, meditate on that question, and the answer will come in. Most people never take the time by themselves to just sit and, ask the universe, God, whatever we believe in, like for those things, and then also logically validating that with pros and cons. I think that's the best way to make decisions.
Yeah, because a lot of times we don't have the data to rely on. So I love what you brought up that way. Um, so one, as far as the integrity you're talking about, I think, the other side of the conversation comes to be the responsibility, right? Being 100% responsible for your life and things like that. Are there any other, I guess, rules or the other criteria that you use in your own life and business that you
Yeah, I
go
think
by?
yeah. So I think the another analogy we gave earlier about the horses, right? Like you need to have a good team. You need to have people surrounding you. So like you guys probably are working together. So that's a team, right? Now everybody needs to have like a team, a board of advisors, a mastermind, whatever you want to give the name, doesn't matter. But you need to have people around you that are honest with you. You don't want cheerleaders. You don't want people that are going to be like, yeah, man, keep going. Like, that's useless. I want people who call me out on my stuff and say, hey, you said you're going to do this. Why haven't we done that yet? Right? And you being humble enough to not get defensive. Oh, but I this, but no, don't just listen. But that's where the growth happens. So the analogy you gave earlier about the horses, like one Belgian horse puts 8,000 pounds, two Belgian horses would put 24,000 pounds. Like that's three times as much. Now, here's another fact. If you get those two Belgian horses that are raised together and that are trained together, they can actually pull 30,000 or 34,000 pounds if
Hmm.
they're raised together. So that analogy, how does that apply to your life? If you guys are developing together, like I'll sometimes go with my friends, we'll go to the personal development workshops together. We'll do all the stuff together because we're training together, right? We're developing together. So we're kind of raised together. So we can together pull a whole lot more than two average people that just met. So I think that's what we kind of really focus on in that department. I think that's a key. And Napoleon Hill talks about it in his book too, right? Think and Grow Rich, having a mastermind. In the Bible, it talks about having a council of men. So I think you need to have that. Everybody needs to have that.
Yeah, man, that's really good. I love that. Because of that, the mastermind is really helpful. I wonder, based on your analogy, how many pounds Polish horses will pull. So,
They'd be going backwards, bro.
oh man, did you just say that? By the way, he's got a Polish last name too, and he's bringing that up into the conversation. All right. So, listen, any last kind of thoughts? Because I love what you just shared with us in this particular episode. I mean, you dropped a lot of gold nuggets. Somebody's sitting here listening to this particular episode, and then they're struggling in life or making business happen and growing their business and things like that. What would you say to them?
I would say take action because, a lot of the problems that people fall into is that they'll listen to one podcast, then they'll go to another podcast. They'll watch one video, then go to another video. They'll take one course, go to another course, rather than actually executing on it, right? So there's a lot we talked about in this episode. We talked about integrity. We talked about, okay, finding in your life, looking into yourself, where am I lacking integrity, right? So start with that. And step number two, do I have a council of people around me? What's my group? What's my mastermind? Who's surrounding me? Right. So those are action steps. So rather than moving on from one episode to next episode, like most people do, let's execute on this first. Let's get these two things in order before we start learning more stuff. Because I think people have this wrong, preconceived notion that, oh, I'm just learning more, I'm learning more, but you're not, right? True knowledge is applied knowledge. Otherwise, is just information. And information is not going to do you any good. So you need to actually apply that information. So that's kind of what I would leave people with. And obviously they can get in touch with me any way they want.
Dude, I love that, man. That's gold right there. Tell it before we sign off. Tell us about the book, man. I'm excited. Prepping for success. I'm excited for you, man.
Yeah, the book is Prepping for Success, 10 Keys for Making It in Life. It's a book, it's available on Amazon. I also got the audiobook out recently, so it's on Audible and iTunes and stuff like that. And the book is basically everything that I've learned in my journey, right? So I've spent millions of dollars at this point hiring coaches, mentors, personal development workshops, spiritual retreats, all this stuff that I've done. But I realized that not everybody has that time or the money to do all of those things. So I just kind of, whatever I learned, I just put it into 10 keys that can improve people's lives. So that book's available on Amazon, Audible, iTunes, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, wherever you buy your books.
Awesome, man. And where do people find out more about you?
Instagram and Twitter would be the best place to learn more about me. My username on both of those is Delta90, DELTA99ETY. Had it a long time ago, so I didn't change it. So that's just the username we're going to go by. And yeah, and if you're interested in trading, you could go to livetraders.com and learn more about that.
Love it, man. Hey, thanks so much for being on the Life Trainer Show, man. This has been awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Great chatting with you guys as well.
Dude, man, I enjoyed that, man. I don't know much about day trading, but it was very, very interesting to me how he kind of runs his business and how he conducts himself with those things. Especially, we got into emotions, and I guess let's start the conversation there. Like, it's so easy to let emotions get the better of us and make emotional decisions, which, by the way, almost always are wrong, right? They're impetuous. They're not thought out well in advance. They're kind of just like last minute. They're reactive versus proactive. And he basically says, no, he's like, I go into trades. And by the way, you can substitute whatever you want for trades, right? In real life or business with a predetermined plan. He mentioned having a plan. He mentioned knowing his numbers, right? We talk about this in the Business Builder Workshop, knowing your numbers in your business and making decisions logically and rationally rather than emotionally. And so I love that he had that plan on a loss or on a gain, and this is how he kind of runs it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because right before this particular podcast, me and you just had a conversation about something specific in the business and how it's not working as well as you like it to. And we went and had a conversation, look at the numbers. Let's see what the numbers are telling. Let's dive deeper into this because I think that's going to reveal the patterns. It's going to reveal what's happening, what's not happening, basically, as opposed to just saying, well, this is not working. Let's change it, change the course or whatever it might be. So I love that he took this approach. Day trading, it sounds to me like you were like almost ready to start day trading now. You're going to be a day trader.
I don't think so. But dude, here's the thing I realized about investing, that it's never a 100% win. And what I mean by that is you're always going to sell. You're never going to time the market. So you're always going to sell too early, or you're going to sell you're either going to buy, too late, or you're going to sell too early, or so you never win. So it's a great microcosm of learning how to make logical decisions versus emotional. And so I love this little illustration that he gave, and how you can do that. And I see so many applications outside of just this particular example that is really, I think, really powerful for people to adopt. The other thing I love, man, is the conversation on integrity, right? Like, so but dude, listen, what I realized too is like, I think optimists have a higher incident level or a challenge with integrity because we think we can get more done than we really can. And so we promise or people pleasers even, really, right? You promise all these things to all these people, and you have every intent. Listen, I had a conversation last week with a guy who's like, hey, we want to do some cool things. Like, can you get me this stuff? And I'm like, hey, I'll get it to you by Monday. It's right as of recording this right now, it's Tuesday, and I didn't send it over because I got behind on some other stuff. And so like, I'm out of integrity. And so we have the best intention. We want to do the right thing. It's not malicious. It's not neglectful. It's just that like sometimes I think we have to be so careful to overpromise and to commit to too many things. And integrity really means having an accurate assessment of your capabilities, of your time, of all these things, so you can really do the things you say you're going to do.
Yeah, and I like how he boiled it down to a very easy, simple kind of formula to go by. I just popped into my head, like, about the company that I was part of a long time ago as far as the coaching goes. I mean, they've talked about that 100% responsibility like nobody's business. If you're going to be late for a meeting and you already know the minute you're going to be late, you got to reach out, right? And I think that bears to be, reiterated and talked about in business, in life, in our relationships. Think about it. How many times does that create problems in marriages? This integrity kind of conversation, right? Responsibility kind of conversation. If you just put that into, let's say, your marriage or your relationship with kids and with relationship with, your employees or whoever it might be, it will start to shift tremendously their relationship, the business, and all kinds of different things. I remember one time, long time ago, because one of my, this like big sticklers thing is being on time. And I remember one of my clients way back in the day when I had my agency at one point said to me, listen, really appreciate the fact that you're here all the time, because in my business, he's a real estate, like a mentor, guru, investor. He goes, in my industry, I barely ever see that happen. So I really appreciate the fact that you're on time, and we kept working together for a very long time. So if you just put that integrity conversation in your life, especially in today's world, you're going to start winning, I think.
Dude, totally. Man, and I totally have a pet peeve with people that are late, by the way. Side note. Yeah, it's about owning it. It's about taking responsibility for it. It's about doing everything you can. And listen, if you don't think you can fulfill on something, let somebody know that in advance. If it involves somebody else, be like, hey, I believe I can get this to you this date, but it may not be until this date, for instance. Or, hey, I think I can do this, but it really might more likely be this. And so I think just communicate. So now we get into communication, right? Which is kind of part of the integrity discussion when it relates to other people and involves people other than yourselves. But certainly integrity does start and end with you, right? And I love that he said, one tool that he used is to increase integrity is by being around the right people who are going to call you out on it, and who are going to say, hey man, you told me this is what you're going to do here, we know about this in Life and Air, right? Like how we have like these fun challenges and some accountability stuff going on with groups that lovingly kind of come alongside people and help them do the things they say they want to do.
Yeah. I think that's a big part, in my own life, as I'm looking at my life, the moments where I started succeeding more is when the integrity started putting the challenges, meaning people were challenging me, right? Keeping me accountable, because we are humans, and like he said, the emotions are going to be there. Our, looking good is going to show up, FOMO, whatever it might be, is going to start showing up. So when you put these kinds of things in place for yourself, and, one thing he mentioned, when somebody calls you out, not to be defensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier said than done, but I think when you start to look from that perspective, they're doing this because they love me. I ask them to do it. They're doing this because they love me. All of a sudden, you start to level up in your business and life.
Totally, man. Love it. Great conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you did like this, leave us a review, leave us a rating. This is not for our benefit, but for the benefit of other people who now can take a look at the Life and Air Show and decide, hey, I want to give this a shot. And together, you and I, we can change lives. We can make a difference for other people and give them the information that now they can turn into action, and it becomes knowledge. So hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.